Just hours ago, a federal judge ordered the Justice Department to unseal with redactions the affidavit in support of the FBI search warrant on Mar-a-Lago by noon tomorrow. In his order today, following the government's submission of a blacked-out version of the affidavit, Florida Magistrate Bruce Reinhart writes, quote, "I find that the government has met its burden of showing a compelling reason, good cause, to seal portions of the affidavit because disclosure would reveal, 1, the identities of witnesses, law enforcement agents, and uncharged parties, 2, the investigation's strategy, direction, scope, sources, and methods, and 3, grand jury information. Based on my independent review of the affidavit, I further find that the government has met its burden of showing that its proposed redactions are narrowly tailored to serve the government's legitimate interest in the integrity of the ongoing investigation and are the least onerous alternative to sealing the entire affidavit." Now, if you watch this show regularly, you know that Dan plays it straight and he sticks to the facts. And we're, in that spirit, not going to be like the other media hype machines who are waiting breathlessly for whatever we're going to see out of this affidavit tomorrow. I'm going to be honest with you tonight. I would be shocked if we see much more than blacked out boxes and general information and stuff that we already know and that we've already reported. Yes, the release of this kind of document is in and of itself rare and newsworthy, but it is highly unlikely we'll be learning much that is new. I'd be surprised, but of course it is possible. There could possibly be a couple of new little nuggets that come out, but chances are it's going to be one big black blob. The affidavit, which the Justice Department itself has said contains a roadmap of their criminal investigation into former President Donald Trump, has been under lock and key while the DOJ and a coalition of media companies battled it out in court over the last week. Trump and his attorneys, who have publicly called for the release of the entire affidavit, have been uncharacteristically silent during actual court proceedings on the topic, even though their input would and could have really gone a long way in persuading the judge. The government, we know, wanted total and absolute secrecy to protect this ongoing investigation. And so far, what we know of the redactions that the DOJ submitted today to the court is that there were a lot of them. It was extensive, in the New York Times words. And tomorrow, a different judge has set a deadline for Trump's attorneys to clarify the one and only court filing they've submitted since the raid. That filing is a lawsuit seeking the court to press pause in the DOJ's investigation while a special master can be appointed to review the documents the FBI took from Mar-a-Lago and actually decide whether agents wrongly took privileged documents among the 11 sets of classified material that were removed. District Court Judge Eileen Cannon ordered Trump's lawyers to, among other things, explain what exactly they're asking the court to do, why they believe her court has jurisdiction, and whether they served the DOJ itself the lawsuit. As legal experts we've had on this show have said over and over again, Trump's lawyers' motion asking for the special master, it was heavy on political rhetoric and light on substantive legal argument. Not to mention it came 2 weeks after the search, which in legal terms is really a very, very long time. The back and forth seems to suggest major flaws and challenges in Trump's legal strategy at defending himself against the DOJ's investigation. And joining me now, former federal prosecutor David Maria and national security attorney Mark Zaid. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming on the show. David, I want to start with you. You turn on cable news today, and it's like the freak out factor. It's almost like there should be a countdown clock, noon tomorrow, the big affidavit's going to be released. But do you agree with me that, I mean, it's really just going to be a big black blob redacted mess?
I do. I mean, as you said earlier, most of what they're going to do is take almost all the substance out, but they must have done enough to satisfy the magistrate judge, because Judge Reinhart adopted their redactions wholesale and didn't go back to them. In his earlier order, he had said he thought it would be an iterative process where they go back and forth in ex parte communications to figure out what was reasonable, but he adopted what they did wholesale. So I think you'll get a little in terms of what's out there, why they did what they did, and what they expected to find, but certainly nothing of great substance about witnesses or specific documents, because at least with the documents, that's all classified anyway.
Mark, are you surprised that there wasn't more back and forth between the DOJ and the judge? Because I was in the courtroom last week, and the DOJ was not happy about even having to redact this document. And I know they had the opportunity to file an appeal so that the redacted version wouldn't even go out. But it seems at this point like they're just going to put it out. Does that surprise you?
I was actually more surprised that the judge even entertained or ordered the Department of Justice to try and redact it in the first place. When I litigate against or try to obtain classified documents, law enforcement documents, there are so many exemptions that apply, and generally the judges will side deferentially with the U.S. government. I agree with both of you that we're very unlikely to learn anything from this release tomorrow. But for those of us that are in the weeds, for example, I just want to know how long the document is.
Right.
I'd be very satisfied to see perhaps the headings and how much detail, even blacked out, is in each of the sections to try to evaluate the strength of where the government thinks the case legally lies, but yet not revealing anything that would jeopardize the investigation.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it'll be interesting, even though there'll be nothing earth-shattering likely, just to see how long it is and try to sort of read between some of the redacted lines. David, let's talk about this special master for a moment, because that's sort of the other big development over the last couple of days. The judge has now said that she wants clarity on Trump's lawyer's argument. This is a judge who was appointed by Trump, by the way. What do you think she's asking for here?
It shows that this is sort of unprecedented to have this type of litigation this early before there's an indictment. So this judge is kind of asking, why is this before me? What is my jurisdictional nexus to this to be able to rule on this? And exactly what are you asking for? They ask for a special master, but they're not seeking a temporary restraining order or injunctive relief to prevent the review, even though they asked for the review. So, the document itself, the motion was more of a story that they're telling, potentially to get their story out there than, what I would usually view as a substantive legal document.
Mark, we're obviously in the beginning of all of this. There's been no charges, but how do you see this playing out long term? Do you think we're actually going to see some kind of arrest connected to all of this?
Well, obviously very difficult to know.
Yeah.
What I do think, though, is if someone's going to be indicted, it would not surprise me that someone other than Donald Trump is the first to fall as part of a domino effect. Look, nobody thinks that Donald Trump's the one who packed up the documents, brought them down to Mar-a-Lago, and, would store them himself. Until recently, we didn't even know anything direct about Donald Trump's interaction with the records. Now we've started to hear more in news stories that, in fact, he has gone through the documents, that he would talk to some people about the documents. But we still have, when the Justice Department went down there in June and his lawyers, Trump's lawyers, certified in whatever form or fashion that there were no further classified documents there. Obviously, that turned out to be false. Whether or not those lawyers knew that there was information, who provided the information to them that was inaccurate, there is a whole host of other individuals who might be in legal jeopardy even before Trump, and perhaps those individuals can be indicted if the facts justify, and then see, just like in organized crime, work your way up the chain by going at the underlings.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.